All right, welcome to Module 11 of English 111, Response Writing for New Media. In the module introduction, it points out that we've spent the last several weeks preparing to enter into the public conversation. We have looked at how to write for different audiences, how to vet a variety of source material, and finally, how to compose text for new media like online video or blogs. This week, you will compose your own new media response. So don't worry, it says, you're not going to be filming a video or learning new editing software. You will be writing a text for online distribution. And you have a choice. You can either write a script for a YouTube response video. That means you actually write it out, but you don't have to make a video. Or a post for a blog. Okay, so you're going to use either one of these options. Once you've decided which sort of response you want to write, you'll select an article that you're going to respond to. So you need to think about like those video responses that you see on YouTube where someone says that they read an article or they watched another video and then they give their take on it, they give their response to it. That's essentially what you're doing. You're going to script that out on the page though in a format for a YouTube video response or of a blog response. And what's important here, one thing that's important is that you are not going to need to use MLA style at all. Why is that, you might ask? Well, when you are creating information within a certain genre, in this case in the genre of new media, you want to abide by the conventions and the style of that genre. So there's no need to use MLA style because it's not used in these formats as in a YouTube script or in a blog. Instead, other formats are used. For example, in YouTube, evidence is given either projected onto a screen for people to read while the person's face is usually there and you can hear their voice. Or sometimes they'll say things like, if you want to see the original video, click on the link in the description below. Or click on this box over here. So that's the sort of thing that you'll actually write into your script. You don't have to use in-text citations, no works cited page, none of that, okay? So take a look then at the readings and resources. There's some information here about how to write a text response. When you are writing a response to a text, you are exploring or explaining your product that you're reviewing, and you're providing insights and answers to questions, or maybe you're arguing a point of view. So you'll say things like, how did you feel about what you read, saw, or heard, what you agree with, what you can identify with the situation, etc. So essentially, you're just responding to the text that you're going to choose to read. When you're writing, if you choose to write the YouTube script, this page tells you how to go about doing it. If you scroll down a bit, you want to start off with some kind of hook, something that immediately catches people's attention and makes them think, oh, I want to pay attention to this, and this is a topic I'm interested in, something that draws them in, okay? And it gives you some tips on how to write a hook, and there's some examples. Then you want to give an intro, like, welcome back everybody to so-and-so's channel, and you can insert your name, you know, smash the like button, hit the, what do they do? Ring the bell to subscribe or whatever it is that they say. And you want to give some sort of introductory material then and introduce what the topic is that you're going to be talking about, the article that you read, and then you dive into the details, right? And so it outlines for you how you can introduce yourself and introduce your video or your channel, and then it outlines how to go into the content. Okay, so if you choose the video script option, this is the structure that you want to use. If you choose to do the blog post instead, here is your blog post article. This points out how you can begin writing your blog post. You want to start with a great headline. You want to have a good hook. You want to have a solution, a clear solution to the problem, and it gives you some other things to note. Now, again, with the evidence in the blog posts also don't use MLA style, and they generally don't include Well, I guess they could include links to videos. But usually if evidence is going to be included, what they do is they hyperlink it to a web page. So you might be reading something in a blog, and then there will be something that's blue that's hyperlinked, and if you click on it, it will take you to another site that has the content that is about that subject, right? The piece of evidence there that you can read on your own. And so if you're going to choose the blog post, that's how you're going to include evidence. Let's look at the assignment itself. If you click on assignment 11-1, you're going to practice what you've learned about new media writing techniques as you respond to a text in either a script or a blog. Choose one of the topics and pre-existing text below to respond to in a text drafted for new media. You are not required to film a video or edit a TikTok. Instead, you will be demonstrating an understanding of the rhetorical context of new media through drafting either a script for a video that would be posted to YouTube or some other video aggregate site, or a blog post that could be submitted to a digital publisher specializing in reader-generated content. Here are the texts that you get to choose from, right there. And I'm going to get to this other part in a second, but you need to make sure that you are referring to the text multiple times throughout because you are responding to key ideas in the text. Here is the real, in my view, the really important part of the content here. You need to, in addition to formatting the work appropriately and choosing structure and language that's appropriate to this style, so it can be less formal, right? You know, these videos that you see on YouTube, usually the language is rather informal and so forth. You must use Rappaport's rules in your response, though. Rappaport's rules are principles for creating productive and respectful arguments, outlined by a philosopher and game theorist, Anatole Rappaport. They're often used to improve effective communication, especially in debates and critiques, by encouraging understanding and empathy towards opposing viewpoints, and then it gives the rules. So these are some guidelines or some rules that are meant to help people find common ground. When there are disagreements about topics, you can use Rappaport's rules to establish common ground and commonality, and then to disagree politely and productively so that maybe you guys can actually make progress. So if you're arguing with your friend and you use Rappaport's rules, it's not like it's a guarantee win necessarily that you're going to convince your friend of something, but you have a better chance of having a productive conversation with this person if you use these rules that I'm going to outline for you. And your goal is going to be to take a stance on the issue here, and you want to use Rappaport's rules when you do so. So you start by restating the other person's position clearly. Begin by articulating the other person's argument as clearly and fairly as possible in a way that they would agree with. In other words, you want to look at this article, maybe you're doing this one that says, I'm an influencer and I think social media is toxic. You want to begin by restating this person's argument, or this person's argument, depending on which one you choose, okay? And you want it to be accurate and fair. You want to restate their argument to the point where if the person was there, they would say, yes, that's the point that I was making exactly, okay? This shows that you understand their viewpoint, and you can even help clarify it. You're indicating to the person that you actually care enough about what they're saying that you are going to represent that point of view as clearly and as accurately as you can without trying to intentionally change it so that you can then do like a gotcha moment. Because then they'll say, but that's not what I was arguing at all. That's not what I said at all. You totally misread, or you totally misinterpreted, or completely twisted what I said. And all that you've done then is you have let the argument spiral out of control. So what you want to do is restate their position as clearly and as accurately and as fairly as possible first. So you'll need to do that with your article. What is their position? State it clearly. Then present points of agreement. So identify areas where you agree with the other person's argument, even if they're small points. This establishes common ground and mutual respect. You're saying to this person, okay, I can see why you would make that argument because it does seem true that this is the case. Or I have also experienced this. Or I've come across data that has also confirmed your point. So you want to list points of agreement because now you're establishing mutual ground where you guys can stand, things that you can agree on. Third, you're going to acknowledge what you've learned. Recognize anything that you've learned from the other person's position. Maybe they'll say something and you're like, you know what? I never thought of that. So you restate their argument first and check and make sure that that's accurate. Then you go, you know, I can agree with you on this point and I agree with you on this point. This totally makes sense to me. But I didn't know that this was true. That's actually new information for me, but that's really amazing because I hadn't thought about that. And so the flow of the conversation is much more agreeable to this person. And then after you've done steps 1, 2, and 3, you get the chance to offer your rebuttal. This is where you say, but I still think that there's a problem though with the argument that you're making for these reasons. And then you lay those out. So only after thoroughly understanding and finding common ground and acknowledging the other person's perspective should you present your counter argument. You need to include this in your work. Lay out what the person's argument is, identify points that you agree with, acknowledge what you've learned, and then offer your rebuttal. Here's one thing that I'm sure some students are going to do that they should not do. Do not, please, for all that's holy, please do not just list stuff, give me a number, and then state your answer for number 1 and number 2, and state your answer for number 2, and state number 3. Don't give me a bulleted list. You are a college writer. You need to write paragraphs. You should be able to write paragraphs and introduce ideas without necessarily giving me one, restate the other person's position clearly, and then just giving me the answer. Write full-length paragraphs. So you must refer to your chosen text in your response. You need to quote the original and offer your take by using Rappaport's rules in paragraphs. Think about how the text think about text written for new media and how they acknowledge their sources. You must acknowledge any sources you are using in your writing, okay? Again, do it in the style that's appropriate for the video response or the blog, and your submissions should be around 700 words or more, okay? That should say a minimum of 700 words, so I'll update that. So, again, when you actually go in to write your work, you're going to make sure, oh, do I actually have one that's MLA? Here we go. That you're actually writing your work in paragraphs. So I would do, paragraph 1 would be my introduction to the text that I chose, and also I would restate the main ideas that person made. That would be step 1 of Rappaport's rules, right? Paragraph 2 would then be the second step of Rappaport's rules, where I would be writing the points that I agree with. Paragraph 3 would be acknowledging what I've learned, and paragraph 4 would be my rebuttal. Now, do this though in the, make sure that you're still doing this in your blog style and in your video style. Okay, but it needs to contain these elements. So I hope that's clear. If you have any questions, please send me an email. Thanks.